This is a Noble M500. It's a 541 brake horsepower two-seater with a Ford Raptor's turbo V6 mounted in the middle. It's manual, rear-wheel drive and costs £180,000. It's also built in the UK. In fact, more specifically, this comes from my hometown of Leicester. Yay, Leicester!
And this is a Lotus Emira.
Brake, 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 brake.
Which also has two seats, a V6 in the middle, supercharged this time to only make 400 horsepower, but this is much cheaper, £96,500, and it's equally British, well, Norfolk anyway, but don't let that put you off, because what we have here is a very rare excuse to test two authentic, purist, manual, analogue British sports cars head to head.
Today, all we've got to do is figure out which of these cars is more better.
Coming up, we give you all the details on these glorious manual British sports cars.
And nobody's really bought one.
All right, no, but no one's bought the Noble either.
We find out which sounds the best.
Oh, what a sound! What a symphony!
And the Stig gets his lap times in.
I have always liked Noble. Now, I know I look very young, but I have been testing these things since before the dawn of time when they were called M12s. Can you remember them?
Yeah, they had a Ford Mondeo engine in them.
Big wing. They were always lightweight.
Yes.
They were always very fast, and they were always more about taking your heart in your hands. So they were sort of low traction, high power, lightweight. It was always a bit scary driving a Noble.
Yeah, didn't you used to have to go everywhere with spare fuses in your pocket?
That is absolutely true with the M12. And then I drove the M600 a few years ago, and that was feral. So it would spin the wheels in about, fourth gear, 100 miles an hour. It was terrifying.
Yeah, that's the reason they've built this, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
they didn't sell any M600. It's what everyone says they want. They want big boost, lightweight, manual gearbox, a new Ferrari F40, and they built it and they sold, you know how many they sold? 30 in 7 years. They sell fewer cars than Pagani.
It's because it's low volume British manufacturing at its best. Anyway, this one is supposed to be a little bit more user friendly, so more Labrador than Malinois. And driving it over here today, it is a little bit more friendly, and it's still a bit sharp toothed, but I quite like it. I mean, it looks exotic, doesn't it?
Well, it looks exotic because it's nicking loads of bits from other exotic cars. I mean, do you know where the headlights are from?
Yes, but you're going to tell me.
They're from a C7 Corvette. The side intake will have Bugatti's lawyers on the phone because that's off a Chiron, and the taillights are off a Citroen C4 Picasso.
Yeah, look at it though. This is a British sports car that looks basically like a big piece of exotica. Look, we've got big side strakes, we've got a low nose, we've got We've got a flying buttress.
Yes, I mean, is that for aerodynamic purposes, or is it because there was a suggestion box in the factory going, how many aero devices shall we have? And someone wrote yes.
But look at this. It goes out, back in, round. It looks like a flower opening.
It looks like a Bugatti. They've stolen it.
But
I'm sorry,
sort of
they've
scaled
taken
down.
the space frame from an M600 and gone, right, that had no design. What we'll do is put all the design on the replacement. And I'm sorry also, but a diagonal diffuser, I've never seen that on any race car ever. I'm not convinced that does anything at all apart from sell some carbon fibre.
I mean, I will admit that this back is a little
busy.
It's a little busy. I mean, if you look, the flying buttress does come all the way round into this little spoiler, but we've got lots of vents here, and then we've got the exhaust, the big diffuser, a slatted rear cover. I mean, you are getting value for your money in terms of design because they've put all the design in it.
I'll give you that it does look quite exotic, and it does do that, bedroom poster, schoolboy, wow, look at me, wedge thing. I'm just not sure that for 180 grand there aren't more refined designs.
I think that's what you're paying for though. There is a chance that you will pull up in your Chiron next to another Chiron. The likelihood of you meeting another Noble M500 anywhere in the world is close to zero.
Because they never sell any cars. I mean, I drove the prototype M500 3 years ago nearly. Where have they been?
They've been refining it. So they've been making sure it all works. And it genuinely does. I drove over these Welsh hills on the way here, and it was genuinely
And it
lovely
got me
to
here.
Yeah, I
So
arrived.
therefore, it's perfect.
I think it works.
It better be absolutely spot on when I drive it. I'm sorry, because otherwise, there's too much talent for this money.
Well, what would you get for this kind of cash? I mean, what, a Cayman GT4 RS is what, 125 grand, or they were when they were on sale?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, 180 grand, you're into very nice GT3s and lots of McLarens.
So we've got to figure out whether this thing is actually worth the money.
Yes, and we've got to see if it's worth twice as much as that rather lovely Lotus. Would you not agree that that is a stunning looking car?
It's very green. The only thing with an Emira is that I always feel like it's the car that gets lost in other people's noise. This is a car that's kind of lived and died, and nobody's really noticed.
Yeah, but I think that's mainly because Lotus has been caught in this identity crisis going, yes, this is our petrol sports car. Now we're going to be all electric and we're going to build luxury SUVs and oh dear, no one wants them. And in the meantime, you forget that they do still have a purist manual analog driver's car.
I know, but that's not even the fastest Emira in the Emira range.
Yeah,
You know,
okay, I'll give you that. There is a lighter, faster Emira with fewer cylinders, which is the AMG turbo one, but you don't want that because it has an automatic gearbox, which isn't very good. This has a manual lever where you can see the gear linkage moving through a grille.
So the weird thing about this is actually heavier than the Noble, right?
Yeah, a lot heavier.
And the weird thing about it is that I always imagine Lotuses to be super light and super deft. They always had that special sauce when it came to suspension.
Yeah.
Now, I don't feel like this gives me any of that Lotus USP.
No, but to give Lotus their due, for years and years and years, they built these purist cars, which were very lightweight, nightmare to get into, no space, dodgy aircon, couldn't plug your phone in, and no one really bought them. So this is them going, okay, we're now owned by Geely, who've looked after Volvo and Polestar, we've got money, we can give you a nice interior, we can give you a decent touchscreen, we can build a Lotus that you would want to live with every day.
And nobody's really bought one.
Oh, no, but no one's bought the Noble either.
The thing is, if you look at this is all really quite, look at the shapes in the side of this car.
Yes, this is what do you know what they call this? They call this porosity, which means it's got holes in.
It just looks, I do think it looks pretty cool.
It's a gorgeous shape. It's kind of like a 7/10 supercar, isn't it?
Thing is, if you look at the way this car sits, all of these different elements, it looks like the Avaya. You know, the big electric hypercar, it's got those vibes to it.
It
which
looks
I
like
quite
another car that no one bought. But yes, at least it's got halo effect. I guess the problem is, I'll meet you halfway, is that when they were teasing this car and saying, we're going to build a new sports car, the last ever petrol Lotus to replace the Evora, it was all teased around being 60, 70 grand, kind of top-end Cayman money. At that money, I think it's competitive. At £115,000 as tested, ooh, I will admit it does start to struggle.
So this is like 95.5
basic
as a basic car, and this one's spec to 115.
That is correct.
That does feel spenny. I mean, I know everything is expensive these days,
yeah,
but that does feel but at 70, 75, I could see this, because it feels all of a piece. It feels bespoke. It doesn't feel like it's made up of other stuff.
Yeah.
I just think, would I really have one at that kind of money? Probably not.
Well, you might do if it was easy to get into, live with, you know, get along with.
All right, get in it. Show me how easy it is to get in.
With pleasure.
And then show me some insides.
So first things first, it's a Lotus that's easy to get into. Getting into an old one, the tub was so high it was like climbing over someone's garden gate. But this, well, it feels like a proper car. Even when you shut this suspiciously heavy feeling door and you feel that it's soundproofed, you've got a comfy armrest. You've also got up here, I admit, some bits nicked from other cars, but unlike the Noble, it's tiny little details. Volvo window switches and stalks, and who cares about that? Volvo switchgear is very nice. So fundamentals, driving position feels good. Okay, I'd like the seat to go a bit lower, but I've still got loads of headroom. Even though I'm 6 foot tall, I feel like I can get comfortable in the car. Then the screens, I've almost got too much information being beamed at me. I've got loads of data coming off the driver's display. This touchscreen handles everything brilliantly that it needs to. Apple CarPlay connects first time, but they haven't just lobbed everything in the screen. I've still got a proper volume knob. I've got a tactile mode switch. I've got knobs and buttons for heating and cooling. That is the balance of interior common sense that we like. But hey, I'm a grown-up, fair-minded journalist. Even I'm not blind to there are certain flaws in here. The grotesquely thick steering wheel I'm not fond of. As you might be able to see, if I put my trusty coffee mug in the cup holder, then I can't actually change gear very well, which is a shame because they've gone to the trouble of exposing the gear linkage down here behind this grille. But yeah, I keep missing shifts. I also keep missing turning it on because they've kind of covered the starter button with a fingernail. I don't know what's going on here. I think someone had a go in a Lamborghini Aventador and tried to copy it. There's storage back here, but again, my coffee mug stops me opening it first time. That's pretty generous though, as is the over 200 litres of space behind the seats, because this car shares some of its platform with the old Evora. That car had useless back seats, so they haven't bothered this time. Lotus has finally learnt from some mistakes and they've just used that for extra luggage. Rear visibility, well, that's better than the Lotus. It's still not great, but hey, I can even see the bits of the throttle linkage moving when I put my foot down. It just feels, well, very un-Lotus. It feels like a finished, high-quality car. The stitching, the materials, it's a very grown-up product, and I just don't see any way that the much more knocked-together Noble can compete as an interior to spend time in, or to get in and out of.
And so to the Noble. First thing I'll notice is a Ford Puma door handle, I do believe. I'm going to have to take my coat off to do this because it's slightly more awkward than in the Lotus. So let's strip down. Just pop that on there for now. Usually I'd put that in the nose, but here we go. So the door does not quite open as far as you'd like, and then because of these sports seats, I kind of have to post my bum in, and then I'm 6 foot and I have to kind of haul my legs in a little bit more because the door doesn't go all the way back. That's as far as it will go. So you tend to drag your feet across the speaker cone, which isn't great. But once you're in, it's actually not that bad. The ergonomics are slightly strange. It's a 3-pedal car, obviously, but the 3 pedals mean that when I've got my foot on the accelerator, my right knee actually hits the key, which isn't great. And this steering column only goes down. And if I put it fully to the top, where I'm sat with this seat fully back, the top of the steering wheel actually obscures pretty much the top third of the dial set on this kind of motorsporty digital panel here, which is not great. And then you've got these stalks, which I think I recognise from several different things, but that's all fine because it doesn't really matter that they've used different parts from different cars, because if they work, why develop them yourselves? It would just make the car more expensive. Then there's a little Alpine touchscreen head unit here. We've got Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, all the usual things. Down here we've got a little panel that controls the aircon, which is fine. And as for drive modes, we've got traction on and traction off. They're the 2 modes that we have. This car has no airbag, that's the horn. It also has no ABS, though it does have traction control, which makes it quite an analog, very kind of visceral car. And of course, the thing that makes it most visceral is this. It's Graziano 6-speed gearbox, open-gated manual. This is probably the best bit of the car. It makes it feel like you've really got to drive it, which has always been a Noble real USP. There is wireless charging for your phone under the manual handbrake, but generally it feels like the ergonomics are slightly off. Now, Noble says that they will be able to drop this seat a couple of inches, but while I'm sat here, I feel like my head is slightly under the top of the roof. So there's a big sort of step in the roof. So I've got plenty of headroom, but then it feels like I'm staring through a bit of a slot. If I sit up, I can't see the dials, and I've got this kind of 6-inch gap that I'm trying to steer the car through. So it's a little bit kind of homebrewy. Everything is covered in Alcantara, which is usually a luxury fabric, but then the contrast stitching, some of it on the doors and stuff, it doesn't quite match, so it's not got that absolute perfection that you might be looking for 180 grand. Thing is, this isn't about the stitching or the headroom or the practicality. This is a car for driving, and that's what we've got to do next. Right, enough of our ramblings. We need to see which of these actually stacks up. So let's see which one sounds the best. Boring! Alright, not as boring. Get going, I want to hear it on the move. I'll tell you what, whoever said that sounds like a Camry was wrong. That actually sounds pretty good.
I think we won that. Let's go and see how the Noble sounds. All right, work, let's see if it'll start.
No, it won't, sorry, hang on.
Turn the immobiliser off. Oh, what a sound! What a symphony! The British sports car in its natural habitat. Anytime, mate.
Hang on!
It started! Oh, that's throaty. You know how some cars don't let you hit the red line anymore when you're just revving it? Not this one. All right, take it up the road. Come on then. Oh, that actually rips. Sort of sounds like one of those V6 twin-turbo LMP2 prototypes that used to charge around Le Mans. I mean, it's not exotic, but is it 180 grand's worth?
Let us know in the comments which one you think sounds the meanest. Meantime, here's how they feel when you're not picking them apart with your colleague in a lay-by.
So what Noble have done to take some of the sharp teeth away from the M600 is just make this an easier car to drive. So we've got 541 brake horsepower, which is plenty by the way, but you've also got an absolute huge amount of torque. Woo-hoo-hoo! But this thing is a Raptor engine, so it doesn't rev out. Basically, you get very early boost at about, what, 2,500 RPM, loads of torque, like well over 500 pound-foot. Because you're surfing everywhere on that torque, you basically can go into every corner just to gear up. So what you might be hitting in third, you're just using fourth. So basically this car is sculling around in a different gear to the one you think, but because this gate in manual is so nice to play with, you don't mind flicking between the gears. And then the ride is so much more compliant than an M600. It's so much better at absorbing those bumps and not skittering across the road that it allows you to go a lot faster. And then the steering, basically it's not as aggressive straight off centre, so you can set the car up into a corner and give one steering input. Woo! And then it's got great body control, so even though it's a softer car with a better ride, it feels tiny and flickable and a bit easier to deal with, and easier means more confidence, and more confidence generally means more fun and a bit more speed. This thing is genuinely a really good laugh.
Right, now we're alone together, at last, I can be completely honest and admit that although I am here to champion the Lotus, and I absolutely will champion it, I'm not the biggest Emira fan. And there are two reasons for that. Firstly, I'm afraid it's just the price. This Emira was built to replace the Evora, but it uses quite a lot of Evora in the chassis and the engine, And yet it doesn't compete anything like the same price level. It's not a 60, high £70,000 car that attacks the old Cayman GTS 4 litre when it was around. It now starts at £88,000. And this one with the V6 and the manual, which is probably the one you're gonna want, is £96,500. And with green paint and some yellow seat belts, 115 grand. And I'm sorry, but it never feels like a car that was built to compete at that level. It feels like it would be comfortable, costing tens and tens of thousands less. Then there's the more philosophical thing, but stick with me here. The Emira sort of embodies the opposite to what you would expect of a Lotus. See, in the old days, you put up with a Lotus having a rubbish interior, naff refinement, and getting in and out being like going potholing, because you had this incredible chassis, beautiful ride and handling balance, gorgeous, delicate steering, world class in every department. Now in the Emira, you do have great, feelsome hydraulic steering, but it's polluted by the worst steering wheel of any sports car since the Alfa Romeo 4C. The gear lever feels great in the hand, but it doesn't like to be rushed. It gets a bit bulky and you tend to miss shifts. And the engine, great at the top end when the Supercharger's singing, but it isn't as special as you'd hope for. The whole car has this slightly aloof, detached quality on a great road like this. It's a good sports car, but it's lost some of the sparkle that made me buy a Lotus. When I was 21, I bought an Elise. It was totally impractical, but I wanted to know what the hype was all about, and I found this absolutely champion sports car that set so many of the benchmarks that I look for in a great handling sports car. And I just wish I found more of them in this. Still, I won't tell the other guy any of that.
Both of these are obviously quite fast, so to keep within the rule of law, we've conveniently ended up here at Anglesey Race Circuit. And if you're at a racing venue on a Top Gear shoot, inevitably you attract himself. That's with a capital. I think it's probably some sort of pheromone, or like a shark that can smell blood from 70 miles away.
Quick explainer for our laps. We're at the fantastic Anglesey circuit, but we're not going to use all of it. We're going to use the coastal layout for two reasons. One, it chops off this boring section, which is just two straights with a hairpin at the end, and second, because we can use the fearsome corkscrew here, which has loads of elevation change, tricky cambers. It's a proper test of a car's chassis, and it's much scarier than the corkscrew at Laguna Seca.
Right, here we go. See that?
That is a Lotus Emira with the Stig in it.
Yeah, we've got the proper driver this time. And what we're going to do is just do a quick lap of Anglesey in the Lotus Emira V6 SE with performance pack. Are you ready to go?
Yeah, it's hot laps in the freezing cold. Should I start him off?
I think you should start him.
Right.
I'm ready on the official timing.
You do the timing. Okay, Stig, in 3, 2, 1, go! It's got enough power to spin the tyres.
I'll tell you what though, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it sounds much raspier out here than it does inside.
Yeah,
Where
it sounds like a bit weedy.
Yeah, it sounds like a Toyota inside.
So actually, whoa, smell that.
That's
Unleaded and tyres.
That's warming me.
So he's going down now to round that right-hander hairpin, and then he'll come back up here and across in front of us. You can hear it.
Yeah, he's coming on to the fastest part of the circuit now. This is where the Lotus's relative lack of power is going to hurt it. But he's trying.
You know, it looks rapid.
It looks beautiful. Look at the scenery, that good-looking car.
Oh, look at the flashing brake lights. He's heavy on the brakes up onto that one.
Yeah, and then it comes to a stop, though, at the hairpin.
No, I think that looks pretty good. He's very good at driving.
It's annoying, isn't it?
Maybe, you know, later, if we edit this to make it look like I'm driving when it's him driving and we can't see through the windscreen, then everyone will think I'm brilliant.
I'm sure, yeah, YouTube is that easily fooled.
It usually is. Right, hang on, I can see him. He's coming down that corkscrew bit.
Right, that's the most technical corner on the circuit. We're using that layout because going down to the hairpin is boring. Final corner.
I'm ready.
He's neat and tidy. A lot of curb though, and across the line.
Right, let's watch that from the point of view of a semi-autonomous driver. Here's Stig Cam. Rightio, now time for the Noble.
Look at it, I think
does
it
look
looks
mean.
good like that.
Yeah, it's mean and low.
Okay, so line him up on the start line.
Up there, good. Are you
Are
ready
you
on the
ready?
stopwatch?
I'm ready with a super accurate time.
Okay, Stig, 3, 2, 1, go!
So I know why he did that,
That was a much less aggressive start than the Lotus.
but I think he's done that because that car would just spin its wheels too much.
all that torque.
So he's actually done that on purpose to get the car moving.
Yeah, I was
I bet
expecting
you
a-
this looks quicker.
I was expecting a spectacular getaway.
Spectacular getaway.
Spectacular getaway.
Now, what do you reckon on this?
I think it's going to be flat and it's going to look rapid.
It doesn't sound as kind of... Good God.
Oh, that already looks so much quicker. Can you hear how long he's off the throttle when he's changing gear though? Because it's that long throw shift.
But the thing is, you never get it wrong in that gearbox.
Yeah.
It's always the right place at the right time, so it's satisfying to use, even though it's longer than the Lotus.
Yeah.
It's almost better.
Yeah, it's a lovely gearbox, as it was in the Audi R8.
I don't know, you know.
What, you think?
I think this is closer than you think.
No, surely not. The Lotus has 150 horsepower less and it's 100 kilos heavier.
I don't know.
There'll be some secret sauce in that Lotus if it goes anywhere near as quick as this Noble, surely.
Oh, here we go.
Comes, final
Ready?
corner. We're going to get our answer very soon. Oh, it's a bit of a squiggle on the exit.
Right, let's see that from the Stig's point of view. So the Lotus managed 1 minute 20.6, which is respectable. but the Noble fired around in 1:19 dead, which is a good second and a half quicker. Not as far ahead as we might have assumed, but still faster on a very short circuit. And the Stig seemed to be having way more fun, as far as we could tell. It's all very well having the Stig on hand for fast laps, but what about normal humans? It's time for some bumbling idiots to have a go.
I'm just going to hold on to things.
Don't start doing your scaredy cat routine.
I'm not scared. It's just that you're an interesting driver. This got the world's smallest supercharger. I'm used to like, what? This is just like a little whine at the back of it.
Yeah.
Like, feel this now, go.
That is flat out. You know, there's not really much of a crescendo there, and then when you start breaking down the other bits, am I reveling in this steering? No. Is this gearbox? You know, we're talking about manual, old school analog cars here, and the gear shift is full of friction. It's not nice.
See, sometimes it just doesn't want to go into gear.
I'm really proud of myself. I've not missed a shift yet. That's the longest I've gone all day without missing a shift.
The interesting thing as well, though, like, it's got a really thick steering wheel.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
and it just feels like it's trying, and the steering is extremely light, so it feels like they've made the steering light to make the car feel lighter.
Which is such a kind of modern car trick, isn't it? They go, oh, I know what'll fool everyone. We'll give it feathery steering and they won't realise it's put on 200 kilograms.
I mean, look at this through here, though. It's got a good front end.
Yeah, and then if I turn the traction control off, the back might have come round there. I can see the light flashing, but it is about 2 degrees today, so I'm being a bit of a scaredy cat.
So you decided to just be better part of valour. But like, this on a track feels more fun than it does on the road, because you can actually just push it, feel the car a bit more.
This is the best drive I've had in this Emira in the last 2 days, but I still don't think it's a £96,000 worth of drive.
What is the thing about a Lotus when you get in it you think it should have?
Just a beautiful, a delicacy and a balance, and also just incredible feel and precision through the controls. That's what those old Elises and Exiges and the old Evora gave you. Even though the Evora had power steering and it was a more everyday Cayman rival, it was still so brimming with feel in this, because I know it's a cliche, but in this, because the seat feels like a dead body in a beanbag, and this is incredibly stupid steering wheel, I feel like all those touch points, all that feel is being diluted.
And it just doesn't have that, for me, it doesn't have that USP that makes me go, this is why I drive a Lotus.
And this is why I spend £96,000 on one. I keep waiting for it to give me that magic moment where you go, yes! And you have a bit of a...
Here we are, this is what I've done this
and
for.
I've never had it with the Emira. I didn't have it with the 4-cylinder turbo one, and I haven't had it in the V6.
Now this is a Noble M500, right? And we know it's got more power.
Yeah, this is fast with a capital F, and you're already having to shout to be heard.
Yeah, but the tyres are quite cold, I will say that. But this is supposed to be 541 brake horsepower.
Yeah.
And I think it feels quite healthy at that.
Yeah, this is because it's light. This is because this is a supercar and the Lotus is a sports car.
But look, feel the grunt. And this gear shift. I really enjoy the fact that it's a longer throw than in the Lotus, but it feels, so good. Look at that.
There's something about an open gate, isn't it? Click, clack, it's so evocative.
But this car's quite soft. Look, you can see it leaning over, but it doesn't mean it's got no body control.
Yeah. That's a British car designed for a British B-road though, isn't it? It's not going to shake you to bits for itself.
Look at the front end on this though. And you've got all these twittery kind of noises going on. It feels like it's got
I think it's called X now.
It's got a lot going on. No ABS.
No ABS.
I was just about to say the brake pedal is quite usable.
Yeah.
It's quite usable because I hadn't hit the ABS. I hadn't locked it up.
Yeah.
And then just then, when I got on it a bit too quick, everything sort of changed.
I think this car is so interesting in the context of where supercars have gone with modes and with so much baby proofing, because it will allow you to lock it up. It will allow you to spin with the traction control on, but is this kind of not what everyone secretly wants? It's almost like a kind of Team U Gordon Murray T50.
Yeah, that's the thing. This car doesn't have any modes. It basically gives you, this is what you get.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't change its behaviour. It doesn't do anything different, apart from if you do the wrong stuff.
Yeah.
But like, I'm double declutching down, and then you can just turn it in. When you boot it, it's got all of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I
It's
think
like
you're
this.
laughing out loud more. Smiles per mile is definitely higher than the Lotus.
Yeah, and it's not just because it's faster. It's because it's more amusing and also slightly more scary. You know, this is a car that you sort of take your ego in your hand and try and make it work, and I like that.
Yeah, that's more rewarding when it goes right and much more embarrassing when it goes wrong.
When everything breaks. Do you hear it tapping the nose?
Yeah,
though?
it scraped its chin again then. There's not going to be a lot left of that front end. Oh, but it's fast though, and it's got torque.
I just feel like this car gives you something that quite a lot of modern cars don't. You know, traction control is on or off, and that's it.
Yeah,
That's
it's not
what
just,
you've got.
Not just the infotainment that looks like it's from the 90s, the whole vibe is very 90s.
But when you get on it, like, isn't this what we ask for? This is the kind of, it's got good balance, it's got good weight distribution. I feel like the brake pedal is there.
Yeah.
There's a couple of times when I've turned it in quite hard and the power steering pump feels like it's not excited about being involved. But, you know, I'm having fun driving this car the whole time. And even though it doesn't rev out that high, the torque makes up for it. Everything just kind of works.
Yeah, and I guess when you're on track, you're not really looking at the instruments and checking your speed like you are on the road, so you're not worried that you can't see them because the steering wheel blocks it. You're just enjoying yourself. Oh, I'm really jealous of you now. It sucks. Oh, having the worst time.
So, what are our conclusions after this 2 days of joy?
Well, definitely that, as we suspected, they're not rivals. They might both be V6 mid-engined analog heroes, but the performance and the price puts them way apart. But that doesn't mean that this wasn't interesting.
Yeah, I've had a really good time, but I will say that I don't think either of these cars are particularly, how can I put this, worth the money.
No, that is not exciting enough to cost nearly £100,000, and this is not built to a standard that I would pay 180 grand for.
The trouble is, for that kind of money, there's an awful lot of talent out in the world, which is a bit more tasty. However...
Yeah, Cayman GT4, used McLaren 720S, anyone?
Yeah, there's quite a lot of cars out there. The trouble is, if you're looking for something that actually gives you a thrill, I found the Emira actually quite bloodless and a little bit boring. Hate to say it, but it is.
Yeah, and I'm afraid I agree with you. I wanted to give it a second chance, but it just hasn't grabbed me.
Very nice interior.
Not the reason you buy a sports car.
No, and the thing is, when I got in this, it made me laugh. And it does this thing where this is how the car is set up, it's set up well, and that's how you get it delivered to you.
Every
After
time,
that,
it's consistent, even with its rough edges.
yes, you have to deal with that car as it is. And actually, it's got really good balance, it's got lovely brakes, it's got loads of power, it's got loads of character.
And the Stig loved it.
The Stig absolutely adored it when we downloaded his brain.
So,
If the money was no object, which car would you drive home in?
I would suck up the bits I'm not so keen on, and I would take the Noble.
I totally agree. I can't get in it still.
He's bigger than me.